thanks for joining me today. I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to be talking about something very personal, like most of my videos are, but I'm going to talk about what happened, why it happened, and this is going to be based around crisis and A&E. So I've decided on this because although it is a hard topic to talk about and it is very difficult, could be difficult for people to read or hear about, it's something that needs to be spoken about. I'm gonna just put a trigger warning on this before I delve any deeper, as there is going to be sensitive information. So it will include the topics of suicide attempts, including an overdose and an A&E mental health assessment. I feel it's very important to put trigger warnings on, just because you never know the impact. Somebody could have a trigger for something with this, the smallest word or something like that. So just below I'm going to pop some trigger warnings there for you. So you can imagine in today's society it's so easy to call someone attention seeking once they hear of somebody's attempt, whether it's their first, second, third or 100th attempt of their life. It's very different when somebody is unfortunately successful in their attempt. Usually there are no pre-planned attempts or warning signs, and it's vital that we have information to know to look out for them if there are the smallest signs. I've known over the years of people taking their life and it's unexpected in some, and others have reached out for a lot of help and in the end just feel they haven't got anywhere, and that was the better option for them, unfortunately. So now I'm going to explain to you my experience, and it has taken the best part of a year for me to learn how to open up fully to people. For the last 9 years I've had suicidal ideation, which I have been able to control. I never realised it was part of BPD. I just assumed it was because I was depressed, and then over the years I've kind of, learned how to live with it. But since Christmas last year it became a lot worse, and that was the point for me where I needed to tell somebody, because I was genuinely worried, and it's not great to, I'm the sort of person to bottle things up and then let things go, but I am learning different ways now, which is important. I'm going to pop a description below of the definition if you're unsure of suicidal ideation. I know I can make it sometimes look easy to talk about or write about my experience, but it is still raw. But I don't want this to be a negative video for people. I want people to look and think, okay, this is someone's experience, or if you are somebody that is suffering the same, you know that there is help available out there, that this isn't the right way to go about it. 10 weeks ago, it was a Friday eve. I'd felt quite low that day. And although I'd been talking to my parents that I was low, I then did the worst thing that you could do and isolated myself away in my room. That's not good. You know, you sit there and you could be staring at the wall for hours and you just have all these thoughts going through your head. But you shouldn't do that. You have to keep, not occupy, so it's like a distraction, but talk to people, because you are more likely to act on something when you're alone with your thoughts. I am at the moment unable to identify my exact trigger or triggers. It's a complete blur of emotion and impulsive thinking, and that's exactly what I had that night. And I stupidly overdosed on some medication, and I lied to my parents and said I never had them tablets. I was taking off them, but I kept some back. It was always like a just in case. And it was only after taking so many I panicked. I was pacing my room for 20 minutes thinking, how do I tell my parents what I've done? And how do I explain the reasons why I'd done what I'd done, when a couple of hours before I just felt sad. I cried and I just apologised to my mum and dad, and I didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say, what we was going to do next. And it was very, very hard, but probably one of the best things I have done. Best things as in the term of reaching out and getting help when it could have been critical. I'm not saying my case was the worst, but action was taken. My mum called 111 because of the medication, where it wasn't like paracetamol. We didn't know how damaging the effects would be. I was still conscious. I was just very tired because it was a tablet that makes you sleep a lot. My mum didn't want me to go to sleep, so we waited for the out of hours doctor to ring back, where she advised that we call an ambulance. Because my mum doesn't drive and my dad couldn't take me, an ambulance was our only option. We waited around 2 hours for the ambulance to come out. This was around 2, half 2 in the morning. They came in, done my blood pressure, put the monitor on me, just asked me questions about the tablets, how I'd been feeling. In that time, obviously with Corona going on, I had to go by myself in the ambulance and to the hospital. Myself and the ambulance crew arrived at A&E, where I had to have more tests. See different doctors. I was falling asleep in the waiting room. You know, every 20 minutes or so they come around and do your blood pressure. And I had to have a blood test where I nearly passed out because I'm no good with needles. Yeah, waited. I had to wait a few hours for my blood test to come back, and then also I wasn't allowed to be discharged until I had seen the mental health team and had an assessment. They then usually, in that assessment, decide whether you are safe enough, fit enough to leave the hospital, or whether you need to go inpatient or whether you need to be sectioned against your will, or if you are very, very severe. As you can imagine, although I've seen mental health professionals before, I've never fully had an assessment like this where it decided what was going to happen to me. I massively took the opportunity to tell the mental health team exactly why I'd done what I'd done, and he said to me that there are usually two reasons why somebody attempts. It's either that their life is so bad and their thoughts are so bad that they don't see another way out, or it's you don't want to die, you just want to stop what's going on. And he asked me which one of the two, and I said to him those exact words: I don't want to die. It was an impulsive moment and I just want to stop the pain, which was mentally in my head, and if it hadn't have been then, it would have been another point. And so after that, I was given the option of having a crisis team come up to my house, which usually lasts 7 to 10 days, or more permanent solution, which was the home treatment team. So somebody from the community would come out once a week. I took the permanent solution because I believed that that was the best option for me. We then discussed my next route of therapy, which we agreed on would be DBT, but unfortunately, along with my diagnosis of BPD, and due to the therapy not being right for me at this moment, I was then later denied DBT. So now I'm going to explain the aftermath of what happened with my attempt. So anyway, I was deemed fit and safe enough to leave. I knew I wasn't technically safe because I still was in a bad frame of mind, but I knew that hospital was not the right way for me. Obviously, having on my ambulance, there was no way for me to get home, so my parents picked me up. The car ride home, which takes about half an hour, was quiet and strained, and I was so tired due to the tablets and the lack of sleep, because you're talking by the time I left was about 11, so I'd spent quite a few hours there with in and out of sleep, and we decided that the conversation was needed. And I think this was the hardest part of realising what I'd done. Like, you never forget your parents' faces or the tremble in their voice when they think they're going to lose you. It's fear, and sometimes it can come out as anger, but it is utmost fear, and they just blame themselves because it's hard to explain why you've done it. And I guess that's a parent's first reaction, is it their fault? What had they done? But it absolutely wasn't. It was my head, completely my head. A few days after, I was then requested to phone a doctor, who then put my meds onto weekly instead of monthly. Thankfully now that's gone to fortnightly, but I don't have any hold of my medication. My mum has to keep that. If you're asking the question, why am I talking about this, I want to say it's to help anyone who might need it. Don't do it. I know that sometimes it can feel like your only option, and it's not. There are so many options out there. It's not even a last resort, because the impact is tremendous, and I felt fear and shame that, you know, people I worked with now see me like that. I've had to tell other friends because I was isolating myself away from them and they didn't know why. They couldn't understand what was going on, why I'd been quiet. I attempted to try and carry on life as normal as possible, and it's not completely normal, but it makes you learn things and realise things a lot. Just because this has happened and, you know, I know that it won't happen again, I can't say that those thoughts have totally disappeared, because they don't, they're there. So where am I now? Now, nearly 3 months later, I'm accepting it as my past. I don't want to bring this into the new year with me. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed about it anymore. My friends and family have been my biggest support system, which is vital when you're in such a vulnerable state. And although what I'd taken wasn't the worst, the side effects I was experiencing days and even weeks later were horrendous, and it was all related to the overdose. Everything, even when I rang the doctors to say things weren't right, it all came back down to what I'd done. So I just want people to know that it is not the answer at all. If you feel like that, that's nothing to be ashamed of either. And I'm probably repeating myself, but it's so important to talk. That's the one thing I've learned, and I've just beyond grateful to be here, experience Christmas, experience all of the great things in life and everything else that you don't really think about when you're in that crappy place. There are dark times and they're not easy, but life ain't easy. So I really want to end this on a positive note, and I want you to know that you're amazing. You are incredible for surviving, for living every day, even though it can be really hard. I know how hard it can be, and sometimes we turn to things that aren't always the answer. And it's just important to know that there are other people out there like you. And if anybody needs anything, then I'm right here, because I will listen to you if it means saving a life. So I hope to see you back here soon, and I hope you all had a lovely Christmas.